Well, good morning, everyone, to another episode of NFL Fantasy Matchup. We are in week 13 with a lot of games coming up for Thanksgiving, Black Friday, everything. So, welcome, Jed. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, how are you?
Nice. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yep. Hey, I'm looking forward to most of the games. The only one that I think will be the boring one will be Dallas against New York, but Bears against Lions, Packer against Dolphins. This should be a pretty good game.
You're looking forward to Bears against Lions? I think we're going to get killed, man. I'm not looking forward to that.
The only saving grace, Jed, is Montgomery is injured. There might be a chance he might not play. Now, you're going to have Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown going off. And I would probably say, Jed, the Bears' defense has not been good in the last couple of weeks. They've given up some points.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, I don't feel like they need Montgomery to beat the Bears, unfortunately. So, we'll see. But yeah, you have to watch that closely if you've got Montgomery. Obviously, if you got Jahmyr Gibbs, it'd be fine. But I think Detroit just has so much firepower. I expect them to handle the Bears pretty easy.
Yeah, me too. I think Detroit's going to win this handily. But don't you guys like what the new offensive coordinator, Thomas Brown, is doing? I actually think he's brought some energy into that group. And they've lost the last couple of weeks, but they've actually done pretty well the last few weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely think the balance, seeing DJ Moore in the offense a lot more, seeing the running game pick up a lot better. I think it's a really good sign. So we'll see. I'm hopeful that we'll continue to see some progression. I just don't. So maybe I was going to look at what so the spread is 10 points. So yeah, maybe they can keep a little bit close. We'll see.
I don't think they'll cover the 10. I think Detroit will win over 10 10 points.
Yeah. Now they've simplified the offense, and whenever they start running, Amon-Ra St. Brown is in a lot of my leagues, so I get a little frustrated. And Sam Laporta, I mean, we keep talking about it. I need Sam Laporta to really do well. He is my key tight end, who I picked very, very high in the draft, and so far he's struggled a lot.
And you might need to move on from Laporta and find, So the other person though who's been playing well, if you guys, T.J. Hawkinson, I think, is really coming around from his injury.
Mm-hmm.
He's been steadily increasing every week, and so I think now he's definitely every week starter. But there's other tight ends out there too. If Laporta is, not giving you I picked up Noah Gray in a couple.
Yeah, because he scored 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games.
Two touchdowns 2 weeks in a row, and so obviously not getting a ton of passes, but they're using him in the red zone, and not a bad pickup, not a bad flyer.
Or not only Noah Gray, a guy that has really ascended. Brock Bowers is the number 1 tight end fantasy, but Jonnu Smith has now become tight end number 5 over in Miami.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. The Miami offense, and I think we all said that, with Tua coming back, just give him a little bit of time. And man, it blew up last week. I mean, Jalen Waddle also looked really good. But yeah, Jonnu Smith's sitting out there in several leagues, not a bad pickup for the playoff.
But going back to Detroit, I mean, it could be if depending if Montgomery plays, it could be a potential revenge game. I do think they're going to run the ball. I think you're going to want to play both running backs, and I actually still think Roschon Johnson is a good play as well too. Especially if you're looking for, I mean, he's usually at least going to score in the red zone, right? So I can see them scoring a couple touchdowns, but again, I think Detroit's going to win this game as well too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like Roschon Johnson is definitely a good, handcuff, or a good, if you're looking into the second, RB2s that can start. He is one. Jaylen Warren, we've talked about a lot. Talked about him last week. He had a good week. So there's definitely some options out there. But yeah, go ahead.
What do you guys think about Keenan Allen? Right, he's projected to score somewhere between 9 to 10 fantasy points. He's out there in a lot of waiver wires, and he did pretty well last week. But is that somebody that you guys would trust?
I think in a PPR league, definitely. He's the safety blanket for Caleb Williams. You're going to get at least 5 or 6 points just off of receptions, but you're not necessarily thinking, hoping for big yardage.
Yeah.
You're just hoping a TD will get sprinkled in there. But if you're in a PPR league, that's not a bad move.
And then a lot of times when someone wide receiver's injured, they may now. If you were to pick Keenan Allen versus Rashad Bateman, Jed, who would you pick?
Oh, but Baltimore hasn't been throwing a lot, right?
No,
So
and this week, I mean, well, I don't know. This week, Baltimore's got a big game against Philadelphia, and Philadelphia's got a good offense, but I can see Philadelphia really kind of getting onto Zay Flowers, and so that's going to open things up for Rashad Bateman. But I'm still leaning towards a Keenan Allen purely because of the number of receptions that he would potentially get.
Yeah. But the only thing with Rashad Bateman, and the reason I know this is because I was playing with this guy Jason. We're head to head, and I was going to squeak out a win, and then suddenly Rashad Bateman gets a touchdown, and I lose. And so that's the only thing is you'll get some of those longer touchdowns from a Lamar Jackson for Rashad Bateman.
Wait, you lost to Jason?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah, because of Rashad Bateman.
Well, are you still in first place in that league, or are you?
I'm still first.
Yeah.
I'm 7-3, but
Yeah.
I was hoping for 8-2 here.
Rashad Bateman.
Hey, but with our 1K league, all right, selfishly speaking, I have to beat this guy, Isaac, who Jimmy knows. He is 6-6. I am 6-7. He is playing the worst team in the league, and I just need him to lose to get into that final playoff spot. That's all I care about at this point right now.
Oh yeah, you are. I think you are. Yeah, you're seventh. Are you? Yeah, you're sitting right outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need a loss and then a win, but you've got more points than him. So yeah, I had a nice win this week, so that bumped me up into third. Jimmy, you're at fifth, and we take the top six, right?
Yep, pick the top 6.
Yeah.
So I need Isaac to lose. I need to just get on there, and that means I need Garrett Wilson to really do well. And with Aaron Rodgers being not screwing around, I just need Garrett Wilson to really hit.
Is this our last week of the regular season?
No, we've got one more week after this. I think.
Okay.
But so here's the thing: Kyler Murray is a hit or miss lately. Like
Yes.
he can get you 25 points,
Yep.
but he can be a stinker too and give you like 12 points.
Yep.
Addison's coming at a good time. Jacobs did amazingly well last week. Like you said, Hawkinson, Hubbard, Smith, and Jigba. My only thing with Garrett Wilson, and then Kenneth Walker actually has been slow the last few weeks as well too.
Yeah.
And Jim, that's one of the reasons why I traded for Joe Burrow as much as I traded, because I couldn't depend on Kyler Murray in the playoffs. He has a 20-something game, then he has a 7 game. Then I just got frustrated with this inconsistency, especially if you're headed to the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't know.
Uh,
This came by fast. Like I did not realize we would be in week 13 already, and now you're looking at like a lot of the trade deadlines have passed, and I was like, oh shoot, I didn't realize that I had to take care of all this stuff.
A couple of things. I want to look at a couple week 12 before we start looking at week 13 as well too. Dallas and Washington Commanders. Jim, you've been picking up Jeremy McLaughlin because of your concern with Austin Eckler as well as Brian Robinson. Talk to me about him.
Well, I think we were texting, right? Because I was watching. Okay, so last week, between the Minnesota game, this Dallas game, the Bears game, I was watching Red Zone, and they were just going back and forth between scores. Oh, and I think there was like maybe the Cleveland game or something like that. Anyways, so I was watching Dallas. I was thinking Dallas is going to win. Jaden Daniels throws that pass to McLaurin, and they're about to tie the game, and then they kick that field goal, and they missed it, And so I was like, oh, my gosh, these guys. I was looking at DraftKings because I picked Washington to win, and it ruined my day just by picking those guys.
Yeah,
But
and then the
I
Bears,
actually-
of course.
Yeah. Jaden Daniels has not been the same. Ever since his rib injury, he's not been the same. But Cooper Rush has actually looked pretty decent. So I actually think that even this week against New York, I think he's going to actually do pretty well. And all he's doing is throwing the CD Lamb. Like he's not doing anything else except throwing the CD Lamb.
Which is not a bad play because CD Lamb's so good. So, yeah, there were several trap games this week. I thought if you were better, where you had to just remember in the NFL, there's so many little things. If there's a rivalry, if it's an in-division game, it's just you throw out some of the spreads, like Cowboys versus Commanders, in-division game. They know each other so well. You could some of that stuff you could see coming. The injury to Daniels. So yeah, we'll see this week if it straightens itself out. But last week was a good week for underdogs.
As Jimmy talked about, Cooper Rush, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns. The breakdown in terms of wide receivers, you have CeeDee Lamb, 10 catches, 67 yards. Schoonmaker got 3 catches, 55 yards, but 1 touchdown. And the other one who got the touchdown is Tolbert, who got another touchdown as well, too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really a good pickup.
Yeah, there's really nobody else, right? Like, so if you're looking at this game, you're going to play for sure CeeDee Lamb. I don't think you're going to need a quarterback, but I think Cooper Rush is actually going to get the ball to him. On the other side with New York, I just hope Malik Neighbors will. I mean, I have him in a couple of leagues. And he's stunk it up the last few weeks, right? Between him and Tyrone Tracy, you just want them to at least do something well.
Yeah. Well, they are playing a bad defense this coming on tomorrow for Thanksgiving. Malik Neighbors has a bad quarterback. Tyrone Tracy has fumbled every single time in the last 2 games. But you're hoping that he'll at least won't fumble and be caught in doghouse again where they pull him. Yep. In terms of Jaden Daniels, so far in terms of yards, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns. But the problem is the 2 interceptions. Yeah. He has been rushing 7 rushes, 74 yards. But Terry McLaurin, when he's doing well, 5 catches, 102 yards, 1 touchdown. So he has been one of my steadfast players I've had on my lineup.
I mean, guys, aren't you surprised out of the 4 quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round this year, Bo Nix is actually the best one so far. I mean, out of all of them by far, right? Like, he's not making those mistakes that the other 3 are making. He's throwing those touchdowns. He's using his legs. So fantasy-wise, like, if you were to pick a fantasy in the Dynasty League, is Bo Nix the person that you really want to focus on?
Oh, Jim, last week, I had everyone on bye. Joe Burrow was on bye. Kyler Murray was on bye. Yeah. I see Bo Nix sitting on the waiver. I pick him up. He got me 23 points. I was very happy. Yeah. Sutton, 8 catches, 97 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wonderful, wonderful job with Bo Nix.
No, I'm actually surprised. Like Sutton, Addison, Smith, and Jigba, those are the types of guys you want playing right now because they're hot, right? I mean, I know Tommy's got Burrow on that he's going to play this week, but Bo Nix, he's good. He's been a good pickup for a lot of people.
Yeah, the number 2 wide receiver out in Denver. Who was that? I remember that was.
Is it Tim Patrick?
Nope, Vele.
Yeah.
That guy. Okay.
Yeah, that's not a bad pickup again if you're going with the hot hand. That's not a bad pickup either if you're looking for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Especially right now, there's some. If you have a 3 wide receiver, like I am running out wide receivers. I have so many running backs, and Bailey is a good person. The only one that's disappointed me, Javonte Williams, 8 rushes, -2 yards. McLaughlin has been the guy to own, even though a lot of times 7 rushes, 44 yards is nothing to brag about, but at least he's so much better than Javonte Williams.
The only reason why I thought Javonte Williams would actually do pretty good is if you look at the Alvin Kamara model that Peyton used back in New Orleans, you would think that he would get a lot more of these passes. But I guess but here's the thing is Bo Nix is a runner, whereas Drew Brees is not a runner. And so some of those dump offs to the running backs that they used to do, he's just using those to run the play, right? So instead of throwing it off to Javonte Williams, he's just running that ball right now.
Hey, Denver is playing the Browns in Denver. It's the Monday night game. And that's, if you think about it, that could be real. So Jameis Winston, again, if you need a quarterback, there's going to be a lot of points in that game. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth, airing it out. And Winston, he's been, man, I was just thinking about this. If you are a fan of the Browns, you went from having possibly the most hated quarterback, the hardest quarterback to cheer for as a fan, to having one of the most loved quarterbacks. Now everyone's talking about Winston and how how he's been so all of his commentary on just appreciating his opportunity and he's performing well. It's kind of interesting being a Browns fan.
Jed, look, here's the thing is if I'm playing the Browns this week, I'm playing Jerry Jeudy, right? Yeah. He's a hot wide receiver. He's playing against his old team. He's going to want to make a statement. I'm playing Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, that's a good revenge game. You're right. And actually, that's a good one to bet. To
Oh
bet
yeah.
on him getting a touchdown, 100
Yeah.
yards or something, that is a good one.
And even Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb last week had
Oh,
18
you know,
fantasy points, right?
yeah,
2 touchdowns. I
yeah.
look. I mean, if I'm playing DraftKings for that day, I'm picking Judy. I'm picking Nick Chubb. I'm picking Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton. Those 4 players, I think, is going to be. The only problem with Winston, you never know when he'll throw those interceptions
The
or make
interception, yep.
mistakes. Yeah, that's the problem with Winston.
Another game I want to talk about is Philadelphia against the LA Rams. Look, Saquon Barkley, there was a lot of concerns about his injury history, but his stats are 26 rushes, 256 yards, 4 catches, 47 yards. Saquon Barkley, we were just talking about Mike, who is in the 1K league, has both Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. The only concern that Mike has is Philadelphia eventually going to sit them and they just won't perform as well near the end of the playoffs.
I'll tell you this: there's one mistake I made this year, and it's actually a pretty big mistake. And I did it with J.K. Dobbins, I did it with Saquon Barkley, I did it with Pollard. Because usually I bet that when they go to a new team, running backs don't do well. So I didn't draft any of them. I didn't even look at them. Right? All of them, every single one of them, have done immensely well with their new team. I mean, Saquon Barkley could potentially be the MVP this year, and Pollard's doing well. J.K. Dobbins, could get comeback player of the year. And so that's my biggest mistakes. That's my biggest regret if I look at this fantasy year.
Yeah, I mean, this is a battle of the 2 leading rushers, right? To see who's going to get that rushing title between
Derrick Henry.
Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Yeah. So, but man, for me, the Eagles were so impressive last week. Just all facets of the game, offensive line, the running game, the passing game, even on the defensive side. I feel like, to me, you've got Detroit, you've got Kansas City, you've got Philadelphia. I like those as the 3 favorites. I was actually seeing, there was an interesting interview. I don't know if you guys saw, there's a ton of money on Kansas City to win the Super Bowl already. But the books are actually Vegas. They're worried about Detroit because if Detroit wins, Vegas could actually lose quite a bit because they had started off, a decent, not underdog, but the odds were a lot higher. It'll be interesting to see.
I actually think between Detroit and Philadelphia is the better team. I feel like they're more well balanced. And they even said they're going to try to feed the ball to Saquon Barkley because I think Philadelphia wants him to win the MVP.
Yeah. Well, and more, you're seeing the importance of the offensive line. You see the Bears with their offensive line struggles. The offensive line protects Jalen Hurts. It gives the running room the number of large holes that he has to run is amazing for Saquon Barkley.
Well, and that's what's crazy. If Saquon Barkley got all the touchdowns that Jalen Hurts gets from the goal line. Jalen Hurts, I think, has 8 touchdowns this year, rushing touchdowns. If Saquon Barkley got those, he'd be having one of the most insane fantasy seasons ever.
You know what my regret is? Every time I watch Philadelphia, though, going from a Bears perspective, they could have drafted Jalen Carter 2 years ago. And Jalen Carter is so unstoppable, but they wouldn't draft him because of some of the other issues. And so they end up going with that offensive lineman. But
Darnell Mooney. Oh, no, not Darnell Mooney. Yeah.
Yeah. Jalen Carter is so good, So.
Yeah. But it really does come down to the offensive line. If you look at Caleb Williams right now, it feels like he's always rushing. He's always running from the attack. And he has no time to throw. Now, he makes some amazing throws. But yeah, at the same time, you're always dealing with that.
Well, okay. So the other thing too is I was listening to this podcast that Kurt Warner was talking about, and I actually thought that was actually really fascinating because he was looking at Daniel Jones, he was looking at people like Caleb Williams, and he was saying he's watching the film. They're looking at the right places, right? Like they're looking at where they should be looking. The problem, he says, is they're hesitating in throwing that ball. He says for some reason, especially Daniel Jones more than Caleb Williams, he's looking at the right players, but he's not throwing the ball. And that split second in the NFL makes a big difference. And that's why he's making those mistakes.
Well, Caleb Williams against the blitz, he has one of the highest QBRs against the blitz. So he's certainly doing well there, picking that up. And he's also one of the highest QBRs when he has time to throw. I think it's something like as long as he has like 3 seconds or something to throw, he's like got great accuracy. The issue is when he's out of the pocket. The minute he's like running out of the pocket, the minute he's feeling pressure, like tanks. He's one of the bottom three. So
Yeah.
it really is an offensive line problem.
And Jim, in some sense, I actually defend the Carter drafting because Darnell Wright was a highly, highly rated offensive lineman coming out of college. And I still remember Lou Riddick would just say, you just got to draft him. He is so good and would solidify your offensive line. So I see where he's going in terms of Darnell Wright.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Baltimore versus the LA Chargers. With the injury to J.K. Dobbins, Jed, you've been picking up Gus Edwards. My only concern with Gus Edwards, he'll always get you 12 carries, 45 yards, and you're hoping he'll get that one touchdown. But what's your thoughts on Gus Edwards?
So Chargers are playing the Falcons, and so I basically picked him up as a just to see what happens if Dobbins is out. You're basically picking him up as a goal line specialist, right? You're hoping that he's going to just pick up a touchdown. That's how he's going to get his points. It's not the yardage. His yards per carry are very low. But the Chargers also are really a pretty hot team. Like they've put things together, kind of figured out their offense. Herbert is actually having do you guys know that Herbert statistically, this is one of his best seasons, which is really surprising because you feel like you've listened or heard a lot about Herbert, but he's having a good season. So yeah, I picked him up as just as a kind of insurance policy to see, but it really depends on if Dobbins is out. If Dobbins is truly out, I have no problem sticking Gus Edwards in as a starter.
Yeah. So Jed and Tom, look, here's my thing is, Gus Edwards is out there, but if you're going to play the lottery, the breakout player that you could potentially draft is a Vidal, right? So if J.K. Dobbins is out, let's say that Vidal is one of the lead backs, I actually think Vidal will be a better pickup than a Gus Edwards because I think his ceiling is so much higher than a Gus Edwards would be. So that's why I'm kind of rolling the dice and picking him up in a number of leagues.
Yeah. And then also in terms of another player as well, too, I want to talk to you about Tampa Bay. Jim, Bucky Irving had his best fantasy game of the season in Week 12, 151 yards and a touchdown. What do you think of Bucky Irving, especially considering Rashid White?
I think I dropped. I drafted White early this year. I was thinking that he was going to do well. He's fine. He's scored 8 or 9 points every game. Bucky Irving is amazing. Like if you watched the game last week, he's the reason why I won in a couple of leagues because of Bucky Irving. And so I think he's going to be, whereas he was like the 1A running back or the second option going forward, I think now he's going to be the number 1 option. And I think Tampa Bay is going to end up winning that division. And I think it's going to be because Bucky Irving and also because Mike Evans is coming back as well too. And what's his name? The quarterback. Who's
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I think he's coming in at the right time. And you can tell they really like him a lot. I think he's really kind of gained their respect as well too.
Yeah, and they got Mike Evans back, so like everything's coming together for the Bucs. Also, if for those of you who have team defenses out there, the Buccaneers get the Panthers this week, and then in Week 14 they get the Raiders. So that's 2 good, 2 offenses the defense should be able to beat up on. So if you're looking for a team defense, that's a good pickup.
Jed, I've been picking up a lot of Denver defenses and Tampa Bay defenses recently.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Jed, if you were looking for a tight end and you had your choice between Taysom Hill and Noah Gray, who would you look at?
Oh, that's a tough one. Taysom Hill has definitely been fun. I feel like Hill's probably got a higher ceiling. But man, Noah Gray being able to just plug, again, the Chiefs have just been rolling. They're getting their points. And so, I honestly don't think you can go wrong either way. You're rolling the dice either way. I'd maybe look at the matchup to see who they're playing.
Jim, Gardner Minshew is out for the year. Brock Bowers is one player you're definitely starting. Who's the other one you're starting? Amir Abdullah?
No, I would say Jacoby Myers, right? So if you're looking at the league right now, the hot wide receivers is Myers, Smith and Jigba, Jordan Addison, Jerry Jeudy. Funny enough, those are the 4 hot. And then you got Jamar Chase and some of those other guys as well, too. But I would say, look, I don't know how Aiden Connell is going to do well. I think they also have Ritter, who used to be with Atlanta. But I do think that Jacoby Myers is a good play. I do think that Brock Bowers is a good play. I don't know about Abdullah because you're not sure what's going to happen to the other two running backs coming in.
One thing I'll mention, you talked about kind of the top wide receivers. Tyreek Hill, got him in a couple leagues dealing with an injury. I'm actually thinking of sitting him. You got to watch the practices. If he practices today, he's questionable right now. But even if he does get to play, you might consider still sitting him. I just think there's still something wrong. They're not going to him a lot. That's why Jalen Waddle had the big game last week. So I might be sitting him this weekend.
Jed, if you actually end up sitting Tyreek Hill, an option is, are you thinking about Nick Westbrook Ekine, who has scored 6 touchdowns in 7 games for Tennessee Titans? Any interest in picking him up?
Wow, I did not even know who that is. So no.
Yeah, he's the number 1 wide receiver. He's actually, funny enough, he's the guy who the last 2 seasons always comes on the last couple of games. He's the guy no one has heard of, doesn't make any impact early on, but towards the playoffs, you kind of want him on your team because he at least scores, right? And so I think we're entering that phase right now where the playoff teams who, they're going to start winning it all, or they've done really well, they're going to start resting some of their star players, and you're going to start seeing some of these no names gain some good fantasy traction, which is why guys like him, those are the guys you're paying attention to as well.
Yeah, but Tommy, I'd rather we talked about Bo Nix and Courtland Sutton, but I'd rather have that second wide receiver in the Broncos, this Devon Vele.
Yeah.
He had a nice breakout last game. He's been ascending. He's getting like anywhere between 6 and 8 catches a game, 80 yards. You're just hoping for maybe an extra touchdown in there. I think I'd rather go with him.
By the way, it's Nick Westbrook Ekine. You know what? Never mind. I'm going to mess it up as well, too. But red zone thread. Another couple wide receivers to look at. Wan'Dale Robinson, New York Giants. PPR is someone that you should look at. Another one is Adonai Mitchell. Now with Josh Downs suddenly sidelined, Michael Pittman not doing well. Take a look at Adonai Mitchell because they're playing the Tennessee Titans.
I think I followed your lead, Jed. I saw that you might have dumped Josh Downs in our 1K league. Yeah. I dumped Josh Downs in one of my other league who was a starter. He hasn't been doing anything, and I don't know what his shoulder injuries going to look like. So I agree with Tom. I think Adonai Mitchell may be a good pickup because Downs and Pittman just has not done anything lately.
Yeah. Speaking of Bears, Detroit, are you guys interested in, are you guys looking at a Caleb Williams as even playing any of your lineups for this week?
Not against Detroit. I just worry about that pass rush. I mean, he's going to be throwing a lot though. Yeah. So maybe he'll get some garbage time points. But no, I think there's some other pickups out there as far as quarterback. A lot of people have dropped Geno Smith. Even what's his face? Kirk has been dropped a lot. He hasn't been playing well. But I think there's some other options that I might go.
Yeah.
Jim, in week 13, you have Nico Collins. If there is a player to hit, he's playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Mm-hmm. I pick Nico
I think that offense will do well across the board, especially with Nico Collins this week.
You're actually also seeing Tank Dell do pretty good the last few weeks as well, too. Because Nico Collins is back, I think it's taking pressure off Tank Dell. So I've actually, Tank Dell is projected to score 10 fantasy points this week. I think he'll hit it. He did well last week. So I would play both Nico Collins and Tank Dell as well, too.
Yeah. Jed, on the Jacksonville side, I am very surprised at how many people are dropping Tank Bigsby. So I've been sitting there dropping and picking up Tank Bigsby and stashing them because ETN is not it. If they are going to do some running, it's going to be Bigsby.
Remember how high ETN was being drafted? Did you know that there's only one game this year that he scored more than 7 fantasy points? ETN really has struggled.
The Jaguars have been terrible. The Jags have been such a disappointment. So much, there was so much offensive firepower there before. You just got to wonder what, so it's clearly, I think, an offensive line issue affecting both the running game and the passing game. But Trevor Lawrence, it's got to come out that there's some kind of injury because the guy is not the same quarterback as he was before. And so I don't know what has happened, but I don't have any Jags players, so I'm not planning on
No,
playing.
no, I mean, you think about it. The Jags players, they have Bixby, ETN. They could very much be like a Montgomery and
Yeah,
what do you call
Gibbs,
it? Yeah, right.
Jamar
They
Gibbs.
could
Yeah,
they could be that. They had Brian Thomas. They had I'm trying to remember.
Christian Kirk.
Christian
Yeah,
Kirk.
right. Like they had some good. Evan Ingram. They had some good people on that team. But Doug Peterson for sure is not going to be there next year.
Yeah. Jim, in terms of the last couple of weeks, Kyle Pitts, is he officially off any of your fantasy radar, not only this season, but forever?
Well, I don't know about forever, but for sure, I'm not playing Mark Andrews right now. I'm not playing Kyle Pitts right now. I mean, the tight ends, like you said before, you're playing a Jonnu Smith. You're potentially looking at a Cade Otton. You're looking at a Disley from San Diego. There's so much other tight ends that's going to get you some points, and I'm not even looking at Kyle Pitts right now.
Yeah, the only one I would disagree is Cade Otton. I actually just dropped him because basically he was playing well with Tampa Bay, but that was before Mike Evans came back. Evans came
Yeah,
back, took up all those passes.
yeah,
Otton could
that's fair.
still have a one or two games here or there, but I think there's better options for you.
Yeah,
out
I mean,
there.
I know you don't like any of those New England players, but even a Hunter Henry. Hunter
Yeah.
Henry is actually not a bad pickup for
Yeah.
a tight end.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's actually not a bad pickup.
Jim, San Francisco versus Buffalo Bills. I've been seeing you pick up Keon Coleman. Do you have high hopes that he'll be playing this week?
I like Keon Coleman. People have forgotten about him just because he's been on the injured list, and so he's sitting on a bunch of waiver wires out there. But I think, especially with some of their new additions, Keon Coleman's been really open, and he scored in double figures the last couple of games that he played in. So that's why I'm willing to take Keon Coleman.
It's an interesting game, guys. There's a 7-point spread. The Bills are 7-point favors over the 49ers.
Oh, it's going to be higher.
But you really? So I
No,
feel like
no.
the 49ers are getting Brock Purdy back. I think they're going to be a lot
Oh,
better. than
are
they
they?
were
Are you sure they're getting Brock Purdy back?
Yeah, I thought he was coming back this
Yeah, let
week.
me double check. I thought he wasn't coming back this week.
Oh, okay. That would make the spread feel better because I was like, he's getting Brock Purdy back. I don't understand why.
And the reason I think that Brock Purdy is not playing, I've been watching all on Juwan Johnson, all right?
Yeah.
So there's he'll probably miss another week.
Okay. That's why. So that's why the spread is 7.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a tough situation. I mean, if you watch McCaffrey last week, McCaffrey looks like he's healthy, but there's just no holes there because the defense is just stacking up on the line, so there's no space for him. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
By the way, Jed, there were some rumors that Mike Shanahan is on the hot seat in terms of San Francisco. If they ever let him go, the Bears need to pick him up.
They have to jump that. And that would be so stupid if the 49ers got rid of Shanahan. That would be an amazing pickup for Chicago.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys something, right? Like, I think one of the things we've seen this year is how important the head coaches are, right? So if you look at Sean Payton, if you look at Jim Harbaugh, coaches make a difference. Like even the Harbaugh is taking a 5-12 team that San Diego was last year, and these guys are on a winning record. The Bears lately, ever since Ditka, have never gone for an established coach. And I actually think, that's a mistake because these established good coaches make a big difference for the team.
And I think a lot of times it's their makeup. Look at Jim Harbaugh. He had a chance between Malik Neighbors or Joe Alt. He decided to build on the front line, pick up J.K. Dobbins, hire Gary Roman as offensive coordinator, all of those different things. And so suddenly now it's not fancy. Everyone's criticizing Herbert's not throwing enough. All the wide receivers are gone and everything like that. But he's built a very good team. He drafted McConkey. He drafted Joe Alt. And so it has done really well. And he has a pretty good defense.
Yeah, I agree. I do think the coaches it plays an important role. I was going to say the one thing that can mask that is if you have a great offensive coordinator, it can mask a bad head coach. But at the end of the day, it's still if you have a great head coach, you can lay the foundation for many years. And that's the problem is the Bears don't want to spend. The Bears always want to get a coach that's kind of a no-name. They're trying to, pluck the Bill Belichick before he became Bill Belichick. That just is not going to work.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Jed, one name that I was thinking about, people are looking at Mike Vrabel and all this stuff.
Yeah.
What about former Bear Ron Rivera?
Yeah, coming back. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Or what's his name that was in Houston before?
Lovey Smith.
Lovey Smith, bringing Lovey Smith back. I would take that. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I don't know if these rumors are true, right? But one of the reasons why they said the Bears didn't want Jim Harbaugh is because his personality is just too big, and they didn't feel like they would gel or be able to work together. I sometimes think that the Bears like to have these assistants because they are not big personalities and they still have the final say. That's my thought. And I don't know. I feel like unless something changes, my best guess is they're going to promote like a Thomas Brown to be their new coach. I can see them doing something stupid like that.
Yep. No, I mean the Bears have got a good thing going as far as the McCaskey family. Like they're making a ton of money. They're trying to, trim spending, keep it down. They don't have to necessarily win the Super Bowl. They just have to be somewhat competitive. It's a really annoying situation for us.
Well, it's the same situation that we're dealing with the Bulls. We're dealing with the White Sox. We're dealing with the Cubs. All of those guys. I mean, every time I look at it, they're not involved in this player. They're not involved in this player because they're making so much money by just sitting around.
No.
Yeah. And
But
you
if
guys
you
don't.
think- Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, you don't understand, or if you don't understand ownership, it affects. So the McCaskey family, you're talking at least like between maybe up to 100 families that are impacted by that revenue flow coming back, and those families are pillars in their community all around the North Shore in Chicago. So it's not just one; it's a huge machine that basically they're not going to interrupt that just to spend money on trying to build a contender.
I mean, here's my other thing. If you think about it, right, and this is a different mentality. If all you're doing is making money, and the Bulls are still selling out, the Bears are still doing well, and you're hitting 500. To be honest, like if all you're doing is trying to make money, what are you going to change about it? You're doing fine. I mean, you got to look at the crazy teams like the Dodgers or the New York Yankees or the Dallas Cowboys, who those guys every year they're willing to spend money, but they're also making money from other places.
Speaking of the Dodgers, like last night, you got a news flash that they signed Blake Snell from the San Francisco Giants. And you're sitting there, wow, they already have all these players, and you have you signed Blake Snell.
I mean, I know they got the Dodgers network, but seriously, I don't know how these people get so much money. Because if you think about every top free agents, Dodgers are always in the conversation. It doesn't matter. They're always in the conversation.
Because it's worth it. Like that's the thing is like they understand that their following is international. Look at Ohtani. You could have signed Ohtani for $1 billion and it still would have been worth it because his reach is so far. It's like they understand those. So the Dodgers, the Cowboys, the Yankees, they understand that the game is not just about ticket sales and even TV. They understand that it's much broader, and so they're going for like building the brand beyond just that one market. But teams like the Bears haven't figured that out.
Yeah, if you look at the Dodgers, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Ohtani, Clayton Kershaw, Blake Snell, they make great trades. Like Michael Kopech now is their closer. It's just a phenomenal. And in their minor league system, they have all these guys coming up, so they'll just constantly retool every single time.
I mean, that's with the Bears, same thing with the Bulls. That's why I've been so frustrated watching those guys because they'll win one every 2 or 3 games, but they're nothing exciting. Zach LaVine's an okay player, but he's not going to be your superstar. And none of those guys, I mean, outside maybe Kobe White, are somebody that you're going to want here long term with the future.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, any lasting thoughts as we wrap up for Thanksgiving with all of the games that are coming up this week?
I think Green Bay will win against Miami. I think the Bears are going to beat. I mean, I think that Detroit's going to beat the Bears. I think Dallas is going to beat New York. And I actually think the Chiefs is going to win over Las Vegas. I think those are my projections for this weekend.
Yeah, no, those are all good calls. I don't see any huge surprises. Looking forward to the Philadelphia Ravens game. I think that's
that'll be a good game.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun.
Hey, what are the projections for that? I mean, Philadelphia. Who's supposed to win between Philadelphia and Baltimore? I would imagine Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, right now because it's at home, so it's at Baltimore. So Baltimore's a 3-point favorite. Remember, if you're at home and a 3-point favorite, Vegas is basically saying it's 50-50. Yeah. So being at home is worth it.
I can see Philadelphia winning that game. I think Philadelphia is on a good trajectory right now.
You literally have 3 huge games this week. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati will be a wonderful game. Philadelphia, Baltimore, and San Francisco and Buffalo will be a very, very good game. Hey, I'm very intrigued by Cleveland, Denver. All right, I'm looking forward to the Monday Night Football game. Yep. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, sounds good.
Good to see you guys.
See ya.